Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about society's norms. Oh, goodness. Is that a little pin or like something just under your skin or a paperclip? That's what society norms is for me. So luckily for me, I have a special guest, Kristin here, that is going to be sharing her opinion and her perspective on society's norms because you know what? Sometimes we just have to break away and claim ourselves once again. So, Kristin, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you for inviting me. I am doing really well today. How are you?
I'm actually doing really well too. Today's not a bad day. Everything has been getting better. My son's getting healthier, so it's a good day.
Beautiful.
Awesome, awesome. So I guess I gotta ask you, what is the biggest society norm that you felt like you had to rebel from? Because there's many, let's be honest. There's so many of them. And every time we grow and evolve and get older and just get a new chapter, it feels like a new one just comes on into our plates. But for you, what is one of the biggest ones that you knew, like, you know what? I'm done.
hmm Mine, I would have to say purpose. And I think that so many of them have woven into that. So what is the path that you take uh as you venture onto this human journey, right? So do you like I thought I was going to be married at 25 and have my dream, like my dream career, which was going to be on the C-suite of some company. And um, all of that has not happened. Like I went through the corporate journey and I pulled back from all of that to really rediscover who I am and what is the journey that I want to go on. I'm still not married. And so that I would say is the biggest thing, just constantly seeking for where I belong and trying to fit myself into the boxes that have been created, especially like in the corporate working world.
Oh, most definitely, because the corporate working world, I mean, it has its advantages, but it has so many more disadvantages that really affects our mental health and our direction. And I love the fact that you said purpose because it kind of threw me off guard, like, huh, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. But it ties into exactly what you said, and I think that is something that truly all of us need to think about because, we all have that expectations of ourselves and we all assume that our lives would be different once we got to a certain age, but in reality, it just wasn't like that, it just wasn't like that at all. And do you think being adaptable helps you be able to roll with the punches everywhere you go?
It's definitely been a part. You mean as far as traveling or as related to purpose or what specifically?
I mean, well, I guess since we'll stay on topic or whatever that makes your heart float, but I guess it's whatever that you think about because you could say all three if you like. I mean, or you could say one. There's really no wrong answer on my show because
Yeah.
if I ask you a question and that's what you think about, then hey, that's what you think
Yep.
about. You're right.
It's true. It's true. I would say it's interesting because I just listened to this book recently called Living Untethered by Michael Singer. And he talks a lot about how, that this ultimate place in life is to be able to receive from life and grow in life without feeling resistance and without clinging to what you expected. So when it comes to like adaptability, I do feel that the more that we can sort of surrender to what's happening around us and what is happening in this moment in life right now and what is being shown to me on my even on my purpose journey, then why is this here, and getting curious about that, and then really just um knowing who I am in my own alignment, then I can pick and choose where I'm going on the journey.
Okay, okay, I like that. I like that. I like that a lot because like I said, people don't think about that. People don't think about that in that way, like surrendering and just accepting what's happening in the moment. But I mean, that I guess you can say that's a form of being adaptable because you are surrendering in the moment in the environment and you're allowing what's happening. But at the same time, you can also put your boundaries up and put um put up your own stance. So it's not like you're going with the wind or going with the wave. You are still firm in who you are, but you're just going with the flow of what's happening around you. And I think that's something that not a lot of people understand because they feel that they have to act a certain way, be a certain way, do a certain thing at a certain time. And it's always an image, it's always a mask, it's always this portrayal of being something and someone else that it's kind of toxic for ourselves. I mean, what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the alignment, when you know who you are and the path that you're walking, that when things drop in and come into your way, it's there's an ease of knowing like this is for me or this is not for me, right? And so
Yeah.
that discernment is it's there and it's not like I don't when I say like surrendering to what's around me, I don't mean just like somebody puts like if I was still in corporate, right? Somebody puts a job in front of me and says, this is what you have to do. And then I just follow it because I think this is my path in corporate and that's what I'm supposed to do. But it's really checking back in and saying, does this feel good to me? Is this what I actually want? And I think knowing myself has been able to help me discern in that and navigate like when I do have things drop in that I'm like, why is this here? And be curious about, is there something for me to learn here? Or is this asking me to choose myself, to choose my own alignment? And right, is this, like a test in some sort of way, right?
Yeah.
To your point, a lot of people are, I always call it the matrix. Like people are just in the matrix and stuck there and they're not even questioning what they do every day or thinking about their own alignment and does this feel good to me? It's just like this is what I'm supposed to do in life and I don't believe in that. I was never happy in that space.
No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. And I like the fact that it was it's you talked about discernment. You know, and discernment's a topic that people don't consider when they think of that gut feeling. Like they don't realize that's what you're doing. You're discerning the moment, you're discerning what's happening within you and everything around you, but you have that choice. And when you remember that you have that choice, like you said, it really does change the environment around you. And yeah, in the corporate ladder, I mean, goodness gracious, that's not the way to be. But it is like the Matrix. You know, when you was talking about the Matrix, I was like, oh, that is interesting because we really are in this Matrix mentality where we just do as we say and say as we do and keep it going. And how do you do is what we're supposed to do. And it's exasperating. And I guess it is kind of like how I was talking about earlier. It's just it becomes a little toxic, but I guess I want to know, when did you realize in that corporate ladder that enough was enough? Like you were stuck in that matrix for a long time. Pretty sure that money was the greed into what people always feed us. But when did you realize, like, man, Kristen, it's time to wake up?
Hmm. So I remember the moment, well, there were probably lots of moments, but one of the big moments was when I was promoted to vice president.
Mm.
And I just like my boss handed me the letter and said, congratulations, you're vice president now. And I looked at him and I said, how do I get to admin? Like it was just, I was trying to get to the next level. And in
Yeah.
that moment, I was like, what am I doing? Like these achievements mean nothing to me. They mean absolutely nothing to me. I'm not happy. I'm clearly just trying to get somewhere else. And I always say like hustling for my happiness. And I don't want to be in that space. So who am I and where am I going? Like that's what really like sort of snapped me into I need to take a different route. And I ended up going within actually. Like I ended up experiencing a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And because I just kept working and just trying to get to these meaningless achievements, right? And so that was probably the moment that really like was an alarm bell for me.
Yeah. And I love how you basically said like it was never enough.
Hmm.
It felt like it was never enough, but for what? For who? For I don't care. I
Yeah.
don't care, right? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Once we get to that point of just realizing like who am I doing this for? Those real questions, because we really need to ask ourselves those hard questions. Who am I doing it for? Am I really happy? What's the real point? Who's getting the pleasure out of it? Because sometimes we do things for other people's pleasure without us, and then we feel like a robot or like a zombie. Like it's not even good for us. It's not. And it's sad that so many people are stuck to these society's norms. And do you think it's a lot of the time it's just pressure from like celebrities or social media or just the way that our um, evolution has evolved? I guess that's the right way to say it. Yeah. What's your opinion on that?
For me in particular, it was the way that I was raised, and both of my parents were just had very strong work ethics, and I, was cleaning and doing chores and all the kind of stuff when I was a kid, and even in school, like in high school, I got a job as soon as I was able to get a job, and that was just ingrained in me that this is like I'm not going to be happy until I have my career path in place. I didn't even want it when I got out of college. I didn't even want to be in any relationships until I found my career. And I believe for me, it was in the way that I was raised. So more like parent and I would say society too, like just maybe that generation, baby boomers, were just
Yeah,
very, very big workhorses. So
yeah.
being raised in that environment, I think had a real impact on me.
No, I absolutely agree. I understand where you're coming from because my family is like that too. They suffered through the Great Depression, my grandfather, and it's very different when you see it from somebody else's eyes during that time. Working was a luxury, being able to have job and have an income and to stay loyal to that company what meant of honor and it was prideful that you can have a job and to maintain a job and only lazy people don't work and it's this stigma of not working this corporate ladder as if you're not doing anything with yourself, and that's the only way that this society sees it. And I love how we are evolving and the generations are changing this point of view, and we're seeing that you can be more and you can have more and it's more than just money, because it is a rat race sometimes. And it's crazy because if you I mean you've traveled the world. I mean you see different cities and different countries, and I'm pretty sure that every time you've gone you notice a difference, right? You notice
Mhm.
how they're similar in the city, everyone's rushing, 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 no matter what city you go to. And when you go out to the country or the suburbs, it's a lot calmer and relaxed and it smiles and it's like a whole different environment because people in the city, they're really moving. It's about where can I go to next? And where that corporate mentality never really leaves you when you're in the city. That's one thing I've really noticed. And it's kind of crazy to think that unless you get out to experience something different, you're kind of stuck in that frame of mind until you have that awakening, that epiphany moments. Or what is your opinion on that?
That's a great question. I never really thought about that perspective. I feel like, I always say to people that when I was in corporate, I was literally paid to think, and now I guide my life based on intuition. So the way that I experience the world now is so different. And
Yeah.
I do it's interesting too because I ended up hosting a circle last night, and it was at a local coffee shop, and I'd never been to this coffee shop. It was recommended to me as the space to do this event. And this is like an intimate circle, and I'm in this like hustle bustle coffee shop that happened to have a bar in the back that was still open when we were doing it. And so it was really interesting when I was dropping everyone into meditation, and some of the people in the group were commenting about how, like, somebody was like making loud noise in the background and all of that. But my point is that I feel like when you shift your perspective in life and you really start to drop into what matters to you, I feel like you can be in spaces that have that hustle bustle and still be like in a calm, grounded place and just really observe like, oh, isn't that interesting? And just honor the way that you feel. It's just, to me, it's a whole other experience of life, like I'll just go walking or running and just be in such awe of nature and just like, wow, like nature is so abundant. I'm in Indiana right now and there's cornfields like crazy, and I'm just like, this, just the abundance of land and beauty in the world is just, it's so awe-inspiring. And I just think that when we really release all the constructs and start dismantling all the systems that we're hooked into, that's when we start really understanding what matters to us and how we want to show up in the world. And I believe that we can do that anywhere, no matter what's going on around us. Like I could drop in that coffee shop because of the work that I've done. I could drop into that space despite the hustle around me. Because to me, it's about our inner landscape. The world around us is just the opportunities and the people we get to meet and the experiences we get to have and all of that. And we all experience these moments so differently, right? Like
Yeah,
your experience of the city is going to be different than my experience of the city. And it's the same quote unquote
city. Yeah.
experience, but we're seeing it through our own lenses. So it's really interesting to think about it like that, because you're right, there is a lot of intense energy in a city, and if you're not attuned to your own energy, of course you could be sucked into that.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love the how you said it at the end. That's a good point. It is a very good point. Oh, that's great. I
And
mean, I think this has been such a great time speaking with you. I just want to know if you could tell your younger self anything, what could you tell your younger self? I've been asking this to a couple of guests because it's interesting to see their responses. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. So, Kristen, what would you tell your younger self?
I the first thing that came through is be you. Like be who you are, because we're like, I believe we're here. Like I came to earth for a reason, and the world benefits when I am who I am. So that, don't try to fit in. Back to our whole like societal norms thing. Like don't fit in. You were born to stand out, right? That's that Dr. Seuss quote.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love that. Yes. That is very different from other people's responses, but it's
Really?
true. Yes, it is different. But I love it. That's why I love asking because everyone, like you said earlier, everyone experiences life different. They age differently, they live life differently, they have parents who are different, but at the same time, you know, you're going to want to tell your younger self something different depending on where your younger self is hurting. You know what I mean? Or when that mark was there. So to say like, oh, be you, that's a bold statement. Be you in a world that is expecting you to change into their norms, into their society norms, especially how they say that coming into the US is a big melting pot, and we expect people to learn English and get to our cultures and live a certain way and shut up about it. I mean, be you and be everything that you come with, I think is a beautiful statement to people to not give up, not to give up on themselves and not to give up who they are in general as a human being. And I love that you're now going into with a more intuitive way of thinking because I'm in that transition, and I think when you connect with your intuition, you are truly having a different experience and it is a peaceful one. You know what I mean? It's different. It is very different and it's very peaceful. So when you said that and like when you were at the coffee shop and it was a hustle bustle, but you were still able to keep yourself centered and observe everything, I was just like, yeah, sometimes you're able to do that. And sometimes you're able to just be around silence and enjoy nature and just and grasp into it sometimes. And it's a different way of most definitely living life that becomes more grateful. Is what do you think on that?
Hmm. Yeah, I always, it's funny because when I was in corporate, my boss would say to me, "You're Kristen, the sky is the limit for you." And I looked at him and I said, "There's a limit?" Because corporate Kristen believed there were no limits. But now that I'm connected to my intuition, like this is true limitlessness. Like this is living beyond the mind. And it is very peaceful, like you said, because I get messages about things that just land in my body as truth. And it is so amazing to have that feeling and not have to go Google or read it in a book or like, I don't need anybody to affirm that wisdom to me. I immediately trust it because of the way that it lands in my body. That to me is it's amazing. And intuition is the only thing, because I'm like a forever learner. It's the one thing that you can just keep learning and expanding and connecting and attuning to new things and traveling to different dimensions. And like you can do all this stuff, right? I can go talk to my spirit animals. Like there's so many things that we can do in that world. And then we get to bring it here, right? We get to see what it's like beyond this 3D. And it's
Yeah.
it's just really amazing.
It is. It really is. And when you say that, when you said everything, I was just like, okay, you were just confirming some of the things that I've done. And it's just like, that's why I love speaking with people because, and just sharing certain things because at first you go through that healing process and that process of connecting with your spirit and your intuition, and it feels like you're doing it alone, and sometimes it's hard to recognize the truth, but in reality you know the truth and there's no need to seek that validation. But sometimes that validation will just come across your path and it just is like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're open to it, right? Like if you're looking for those
Exactly.
signs. And like when I travel, I see angel numbers all the time, and I know like I just take it as doesn't matter what the angel number is, but it's a sign that I'm on the right path. I'm on my path.
Yeah, you're
Everything's
doing Yeah,
okay.
you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, so there's no reason to stress anything else. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I guess to start wrapping up the show, what would be some great advice that you can leave my audience off with? Even though this has already been such a great time, you already gave us some great, great stuff to think about. What can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with?
Mm. Something that I've been thinking about as we've been talking actually is I had a mentor draw the bell curve for me. She drew the bell curve for me in statistics, like it's basically all the outliers get pushed to the side, right? And the norm is in the middle. So she drew these arrows and she said, "You are this extreme outlier way over here." And then she drew all these arrows into the norm, into the bell. And she said, "Your whole life, you're going to feel pressure to come back into the norm." And it really resonated with me. And so, what I want to say is that for those of you that feel called to step out of the norm, to step out of the matrix, follow that. And yes, it takes courage, but those of us who are walking those paths, who are walking our true path, we're the ones that inspire everyone else to know that it's okay to come out of the norm. It's okay to step out. It's okay to follow who you are and to be who you are in the world. And without us doing that, like a lot of people seek evidence to walk that path, right? And they seek like the light, they look for the light, right? And those of us that are walking those paths, we are the light, like we are the way showers. And so if you get the call, not everybody gets it. Not everybody in this life is going to walk the path, want to walk their true purpose in life. And if you're one of the ones that feels it, don't dim that light. Don't mute it just to be with
Oh,
everyone else.
Yes, that's very true. I love that. I'm glad that we were able to reconnect so that you can say that because goodness, it was needed. It was needed. Yes. Don't allow society to dim your lights. I think that's a perfect way to end society norms, this conversations, because goodness, when you were saying that when you're up there and it keeps on the arrows are supposed to
Yeah.
force you back into that way of the matrix and the way of thinking and the way of acting, the way of doing. I'm just like I can reflect back and think about how many times I felt that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How many times I just was just like, oh, pulled back in just because of that thought. But it just shows that we're in the right path and we just have to keep going and we have to keep moving forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's the show. If you guys want to know more about Kristin, please, I have her lovely photo, connects right to her website. And if you want to know more about Kristen, just ask her some more questions because you feel curious and you will like validation, even though you don't need it, because this is your intuition and this is what's telling you that you need to keep going on your path. If you're like that, validation or connection, more so to say, that connection, reach out to Kirsten. She's such a wholesome person. We need more wholesome individuals in our lives and just in our community and just connecting and just recognizing, just to say, you know what, there's a good person out there. Because there's so many bad people and there's so many nasty, bitter taste people that just leaves a nasty taste in our mouth after dealing with them. But at the end of the day, when you deal with someone good, you got to share it. That's why we're sharing this conversation because it was so, so great. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Always, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.